I'm going to share with you the truth about the driver swing that people just aren't telling you, that's going to transform your golf like it's transforming my students' golf, and it's going to blow your head off a little bit, so bear with me. So the truth about the driver swing that I still see so many get mixed up and wrong on, and it really limits your movement, is to do with how you set up, and it's to do with your intention, so how you intend to hit the ball, which is everything. If you think about what's going to happen, my intentions, so ideas of where I aim, where I lean, where I grip it, how I stand, everything is going to influence this movement that I make, and then in turn where the ball goes. And so many people have got really archaic intentions and are still being taught really archaic intentions when it comes to your setup. So driver, ideas of having your setup, and in the comments down below, let me know before I give you the answer, where should your pressure be at setup? So when you set yourself up, should you be 50-50 with your weight? Should you be leaning lead side? Should you be slightly trail side? Where should you be with your pressures? Go on, don't be afraid. Like, having an answer, even if it's right or wrong, is good. It just helps you learn. I like people to get it wrong, and then it's easier to understand where the fixes come from. Have you commented? And you? Thank you. So the more and more I measure with students on my force plates, my Swing Catalyst force plates in my studio, I'm starting to notice that students start very static, and often with more pressure on trail foot. And I mean, I've done videos in the years gone by before we were measuring where, yeah, you would have told people 60% trail foot, even 70, lean back, it's going to help you hit up the ball, it helps you set behind the ball, all these kind of ideas. But it's way more complex than that, and simple, subject to if you follow the train of thought that we're going to go with. So look, let's pretend you're someone who struggles to move pressures like trail side, lead side. And this is a lot of you. Like, this is nearly all of you watching. So really common pattern that we see from better players is they move pressures onto trail foot early. So as they take the club away, they're already moving pressure. I mean, I personally move 70 to 80% of my pressure with my driver onto my trail foot from about here. And then everything, as I start turning and tilting, going back, starts moving my pressure back to a centered position. So it actually gets me I move this way early and then start recentering. And what you find from good players, the more we look at good players, it's a common pattern. They move a lot of pressure to the trail side early, and then they spend the rest of their backswing recentering, so basically turning their hips almost back towards the target with their pressure. So, sorry, turn's the wrong word. They're not turning them back. They are hinting them back. They are pushing them back. They are stretching them that way as they rotate, as their arms go that way. So they're getting this kind of big exaggeration. It stretches, half goes this way, half goes that way. And what we see then from good players is as they recenter more at the top of their backswing, they then have a shift onto their lead, and then we see a stalling as they come through to get all the energies out onto the ball. So we see this pattern of them going trail, recenter as things are in the backswing, bump early, so as they start the downswing and before bump, and then a stall as they rotate through. They don't just keep bumping across. So there's a sequence, a pattern of things happening, and what you notice when you measure is the sequence is super early, and for lots of them it's before they even swing, which we're going to show you. Now what we see with amateurs is we see a lot of mess, and we see a lot of different things with amateurs, to be fair, but we do see a lot of, let's say, pressure's quite even as they start, maybe even set a little bit more on this foot. As they start taking the club back, they sometimes push lead side, or they stay pretty even with both feet. And then as they take the club back, top of their backswing, they've got a lot of pressure on the trail foot. Remember, the world's best are often starting to get the pressure a bit more even as they get to wherever the top of the backswing is. So let's say when the club changes direction, where amateurs are already all up there at the top of the backswing. Then as they start their downswing, they just haven't got time for the bump to happen and the stall to happen, which is why we see these rotations back here, paths come down at left, big slices. So you see a noticeable difference in the order, in the pattern, in how they're using the ground, how they're using the segments of their body to get the most out. So if you want to hit better shots, we need to start changing the order in how you shift and use this force, torque and rotate to get the better swings, the more powerful swings out. So let's think about it in a couple of basic ways to kick us off. First way, if you're someone who struggles, say, with swaying, so you're a long way across here and up here at the top of the backswing, you've not what we see from the better players where they recenter, they're not just stayed over on this trail side. You'll generally be someone who maybe gets a little bit too much pressure as the club goes back moving lead to then kick it across. That's a common pattern. So what you could practice is trying to increase this feeling and get rid of the feeling of any kind of pressure shifts. Yep, get rid of it. And what you find is it totally changes golfers' ideas. So the easiest way to do that is in your waggles in your setup. Remember, in how you prepare to hit the ball, like I said at the start, you can increase the ideas of going more rotation, less sway, by rotating. So you could start really getting your hips to feel like they're going this way. Get your knees moving this way. Get your heels coming up. So feel the pressure move into the toes, slamming the heels down. All in your waggles as you're getting ready to go. So increase the torque values, because if I want to turn more this way, guess what I'll do? Watch me jump here. Look, I'm going to jump around. I'm going to try and go 360. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to jump from here around 360. I'm going to load, and try and get around. What lots of amateurs are doing is they're trying to jump 360 from here. Oh God, I'm not getting round. I'm just never getting round. The intention influences the movement dramatically. People trying to set 70%, 60% of their pressure on the trail foot, like the magazines told us for years. It's just killing them. Now let's say you're someone who can't move your pressures this way early enough. So think about it. I will go pressure onto my trail side early to then start going back. What we're seeing from amateurs is they take their arms back first, pressures don't really move, stay quite central, and then they shift. So I'm moving my pressure across earlier, amateurs not. And again, it's a pattern with good players. You could start doing this shift a bit more. So where you feel like you're going pressure lead foot, pressure trail, pressure lead foot, pressure trail, pressure lead foot, pressure trail. So you're stomping, feeling that pressure go onto that side earlier. Now, as soon as you load up this side, start the club with your hands, and you'll find that when the club gets back from here to around here, you've got your pressure onto your trail side early. Then you can start centering back. Then you can start bumping back. Now you're getting the separation in those segments, which is going to allow you to get the most out of your shots. Starting back here is a recipe for just staying back here, or even pushing forwards to then go back. That's the common one. Then what you can do with these ideas in mind is you can blend them. So personally, I'm using a combination of step, step and torque, torque. So the more I get my feet moving this way and my hips and knees moving this way, what happens is the earlier I can get things firing, the earlier I can get segments firing, the more in order I get them to hit the ball. Because guess what? Most amateurs got no order when they hit the ball. When they hit the ball, they're still moving segments that should have stopped, that should have stalled to release energy. They're still moving through where the energy lies. It's getting that energy out at the right time. Trying to start things earlier in your setup, in how you set up, rather than these static, archaic positions that so many have been taught. It's just not going to help. And what I like to see with students when we're practicing, we're quite aggressive with it. You know, it's quite a dramatic movement, and if they're going to try and get more rotations in, you know, I'll get them to really start there and go, and they hit some crazy shots, but they get the feeling of the movement. You wouldn't apply that so much to when you play, but you would use the same principles, just a calmer version, a little bit more like this. So I'm going to use the ideas of lead foot, trail foot, stomp, as well as my hips moving. You see, I'm not staying static. I am moving this way and this way, as well as a bit of this way and this way as I waggle, because I am trying to warm up. I'm revving up. This is no different to starting at the race line, you're kind of revving up to go, and then I'm going to lead into lead foot, then try and pull that trigger. Oh, that is a rip. Now, if you want to improve your driver more, you've got to make sure your shoulder turns are encouraging these tilts as well, because this pressure encourages more tilts, which then need to be combined with your turns. And this video is going to explain more of how to hit that driver almost as good as that one.